While you're inside prison, you have to be very careful about who you take advice from. All right, because there's a lot of misinformation that goes around, and if you listen to the wrong person, then it's just going to cloud your judgments and just how you deal with things in the wrong way. Like, the only person you should ever listen to, especially when it comes to like parole and getting released, and like what you should do and shit like that, right? You should listen to what your parole officer tells you. Like, listen to the advice. And there will be some guys inside the prison that will tell you that, doesn't matter what you do, because you did this crime, you probably won't get out, right? Or because, they knew someone else that went through the same thing that you did, and he didn't get out, so there's a low chance that you're gonna get out, right? When you hear shit like that, that's gonna discourage you from taking action to getting released. You don't know what that other inmate did to fuck up his release, right? You don't. And because you're listening to this guy tell you that no matter what you do, it's fucking pointless, you're gonna subconsciously do things in a way that's not gonna help your case into getting out, right? You shouldn't let that discourage you from taking every possible step to fucking get released, right? Which means staying away from, the bad crowds in the prison, because, guards, they actually watch who you hang out with. Your parole officers kind of pays attention of who you hang out with, right? Like, they know who's bad and who's not, right? And then they see you hang out with like other gangsters in prison, then they're just gonna assume that when you get out, you're gonna hook up with these guys and then do bad shit. Or because, there's a general rule that says that you are who your friends are, right? You are the people who you associate with. So you got to make sure that you don't hang out with the wrong crowd. That's why it's important for you to either be alone or hang out with guys who are normal like you and who are just trying to get released, right? Do not hang around with other gangs or other people who, get into fights and who do drugs and shit like that, because they're going to assume that you're involved in that shit too. Because every inmate gets assigned a correctional officer, right? And I think they call it your CO, who writes a report about you once every fucking 2 or 3 months about what kind of inmate you are. And if you want to find out who your CO is, usually they will tell you. They'll be like, "Hey, Thomas, yeah, I'm your correctional officer. So if you need anything, just let me know. But if you do need anything, don't let them know, right? You're not supposed to be friends with your correctional officer. You're not. If you're seen being friends with your correctional officer, then you might get punched out. In the medium prison, at least. In the minimum, it doesn't fucking matter. How they treat you in the minimum and the medium, completely different. In the medium, they're fucking assholes. In the minimum, it's like you're a person again to them. Like you're human once you go into the minimum prisons. The contrast of how things are in prison when you switch from a medium to a minimum, it fucking baffled me. But yeah, that's one of the things that you need to watch out for, okay? When you're taking advice from other people. Only take advice from your parole officer, because one thing that people love doing, right? And it's that they love being asked for help. And even if they don't know shit, they will try to help you anyways. And this is bad for you because they're going to give you the wrong information, right? So only ask for help from the professionals. And some people may say that, this parole officer is shitty, right? Like, I got a parole officer in my last prison that I was in, and everyone said that he was the worst guy ever. But with me, he was really good, because it just depends on what kind of inmate you are. They treat every person differently, right? So if that parole officer thinks that you're going to go back into crime again, then of course he's going to be a shithead to you, right? If you're going to go into crime, you need to convince them that you're not going to go into crime. But these guys have been doing their jobs for years, so they could easily tell who's lying and who's not, They've seen repeat offenders. They've seen guys who they supported for parole, and the next thing you know, they're back inside prison. So some of these parole officers, they're pretty cold, because maybe they just had it with they just had it with liars, But, with me, he told me straight up, I have high hopes for you, Thomas. Right? Now, it felt good to hear that because, like, yes, right? He supports me for my release. And during my parole hearing, he says, I have nothing bad to say about him. He has followed his correctional plan to the teat. He didn't say teat, but you know what I mean. And yeah, I got his full support. I got day parole other. Got released within a week after my parole hearing, and I was out. Best day of my life. Okay. But yeah, like back to what I was saying about taking advice though. Like when I was inside the minimum in Drumheller, I told this guy my crime, and I told him how many breaches I got, right? Repeated breaches. I got breaches 3 times within a year, right? And he says, wow, with the amount of breaches you have, you probably won't get parole. I'm sorry to tell you this. You probably won't. He was the biggest pessimist that I have ever met, right? He says that, you were definitely not going to get day parole other. You probably won't get day parole, but you know what? Who knows? Maybe you will. But you probably won't, right? Hearing that pissed me off. But you know what? I never gave up. I kept on trying to do whatever I can to get released, right? But I think I'm rambling on too much. Anyways, yeah, don't be careful who you take advice from. See ya.